Now you can imagine that she either walks away with some RFID tag, or that she has some sort of system, like a lower tech way of doing that, or even her own device that tags into the system and it knows who she is.
Or the armband that you guys are already working with.
So multi-table puck.
So our next persona that we ran through, and this was a much more complex persona, was Ron. He's low vision. But because they wouldn't allow me to say, hey, are you blind or low vision? A lot of the low vision has to be split among a couple of groups. So he's going to come and he's going to say English, but he's also going to have it said to him, because he has to say it, and it may be turned on by default depending on how you guys actually set up the kiosk. And he's going to say, go ahead and just drive this.
Which one? Low vision?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you remember his persona, he has a background in kind of engineering, comes to the museum center all the time, et cetera, et cetera. I don't remember all the specifics, but he's a fairly advanced user.
Very technology-driven,
et cetera. So we decided he's probably going to start going through all of it at least once, because techies all want to check out what's behind the buttons.
Oh, and I think, and specifically, Ron gets up close to the screen. That's how he sort of likes to interact with this stuff. When he's comfortable, he likes to get up close to the screen, sort of crowd permitting. And so we felt that he'd be going through a lot of these options because he's trying to set up his ideal.
Yeah, and specifically one of the things we were talking about when we pick Ron is it specifically says that if there's a lot of people on an exhibit, he just skips it. So, you know, he's clearly he has a need and he has to get up close to things and he has to really try to become intimate with the exhibit to truly get everything from it. So he's a little leery about giant crowds of people. So we tried to help in our design to say, like, well, what would make that less of a concern for him? So he's going to go ahead.
Text and supports. He's going to change, obviously, that he's going to change text size. He may change contrast and color.
Because he is low vision, but he does say he likes to read things. So he may, again, we've chosen this preference, so he may turn these on even though he's low vision. He'll probably make them large. He's going to ask for things to be read to him. And we had like a quickly or slowly, and you know the point of that was to try to help for someone who has a cognitive disability who may take a little longer to understand things. You can slow the whole speed of it down. He's going to go into images. He needs larger images because he's low vision. So our system lets him set up that the images that are going to be presented on the screen will be larger. Would he like a description of the images in the exhibit? Well, I mean, we don't know his preferences, but we said sure. Why not? So he comes back here, says audio and video descriptions, and we ask him, do you want additional descriptions in the video, and would you like audio descriptions of the video? Because I know this is.
So the two are slightly different things. Audio description is sort of the broad term of what is referred in the US here as descriptive video, the type of stuff that you do, where you're describing in time what's happening in the video stream. One thing that was very clear in the e-learning stuff that we had was when there's a video, some people would prefer to have a text description that they can also review, which isn't happening in real time, but is instead just another text asset, if you will, in the exhibit, explaining what's happening in the video. So we kept using the example for some reason of a guy making a taco, and so the audio description or the descriptive video component would say, Bob picks up the taco shell and fills it.
He's English, so he doesn't know what a taco is.
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on. But then there might also be, why are you all in my kitchen? Anyways, whereas the additional description might be a full sort of text description component that someone could read without even watching the video about what's happening and what's supposed to come across. And again, this is something that a museum might want to offer, they may not. It's something that we heard some teachers offering in e-learning, so we threw it in as something. It's similar to the descriptions of images that you have that are out there.
The concept of the system, especially if it's put on some sort of open system, is that a museum could go through and self-select and say, here are the services we can actually offer. And so they would turn on and off variables. So we tried to create this profiling tool that had as many variables as possible counted for, and knowing that we're still missing obviously some, but But the idea that if this was out there and one museum didn't have much budget, they could say, well, turn this one off.
Yeah, we don't have the budget to offer this type of adaptation now, so let's just not offer it. So we make a choice here, and we go back to controls of the exhibit, and we ask for the activities, you have a time limit, would you like more time?
So
Go ahead, because this is another last minute.
yeah, this was something that when we went through, we went, oh, right, we have to deal with some of these aspects, these interactivity aspects that we tried to tackle, but it is very hard in this environment, and it's something that I've never run into before with the type of bespoke input systems that you're using. It's not sort of off-the-shelf stuff, and it's not stuff that the users are using all the time. So when I'm working in e-learning, a person has a screen reader that they want to use, and we can describe the setup that they have for it and customize stuff to them. That's a lot harder in this environment. For something like the time limits, though, that's a great interactivity example where for your provocative questions example upstairs, you've got a quiz that's going on and people have about 15 seconds to answer. Not everyone is going to be able to answer in that period of time. An option like this would allow you to maybe adjust that in some exhibits. You may not be able to in some exhibits as well. That's a design question that comes up from preference like this.
One comment about that. Sorry, one comment about that. I think Ben actually already indicated that there are timeouts already implemented in lots of the interactives. They're just not exposed and not dynamic currently. But so there's already some of the infrastructure in place to realize the benefits of some.
And then at the same time, I saw one that said, like, you know, this exhibit is about to reset. Please press anywhere on the screen in the next 15 seconds if you want to continue. So I think there's a mix of both, even within this organization. So a choice is made. Would you like to use your own device? Again, very modular. You know, we weren't given a budget. We weren't given. So we're going to say yes. And so for him, we're kind of done, because where we really kind of ran into some flaws in it is when we talked about Molly. Now, Molly has a developmental disability, and she comes to the museum with a group and her mother. So she's never here alone. But when we kind of ran her through our group, we were actually discovering we weren't giving her anything that helped her. So this is where we kind of finished our day yesterday. And Chris, I'm actually going to ping you to talk about some of the last bits of things that we were trying to figure out to make the museum experience better for her while still maintaining the overall framework of a museum. So time to stand back up.
So this really falls under that third sort of component of the UDL thing, this idea of engagement and bringing people into situations where if you have a set of learning objectives that you want for your exhibit and you have multiple components, it may be possible in some cases to either add or remove content if it's been designed and evaluated that way. But certainly one heated discussion we had was, well, we don't do that. For a physical thing, you can't do that. Oh, all right, well that makes sense. For a physical thing, you can't replace a piece of content that way. It doesn't make sense. And there is this idea of the holistic experience that's coming away from a museum exhibit. You don't want to interfere with that by replacing pieces of content with something like changing the reading level. In some cases, you might be able to. In other cases, it might be that you need to change where they're going. That doesn't mean that the user can't indicate, or their parent or their partner or whoever's coming with them, what sort of reading level is appropriate for them, or other forms of cognitive support that they might require, like, say, providing an extra glossary about terms, or providing some extra navigation in the form of a table of contents for large blocks of text, or something like that. There are different ways to play with it. Those are really design considerations, and you would need to expand this learning support category, and we threw up something like this. Would you like to adjust the level of content in an exhibit? That may not be possible, and it might be that you need to instead ask it along the lines of what is your reading level, or these sorts of things.
But in a digital interactive, you could in fact put something like this. You could write content that's spooled to the screen in different reading levels, and in a simple question like this, based on the answer, present that content in a much more advanced way or a much more simple way, you know, that's just a programming problem or programming challenge. So it could be done. It's just, you know, adds a level of complexity to the actual end product.
And one of the big things that's sort of an open issue that kept coming up is, well, but what if that breaks the overall experience? I don't have a good answer for that. You have a set of learning objectives and a set of measures that you're measuring against. So I was talking to the evaluation team, and they have really good criteria that they're basing it on. So if you have multiple experiences that are being created by different personalizations, you'll need to start thinking about, in broader terms, right, how do those criteria match up for the different parameters that we have available? What happens if someone adds in supplementary images? Does that change their experience? My guess would be no, but I'm an evidence-based person, so I would want to bring in some people who want to use supplementary images to add to text. But it's a hard problem, and I'm not going to tell you that, hey, you just need to flip a switch and it's all done.
Now, you guys are developing some stuff in real time, so what we did was, after going through this learning support, we did our touch and feel, and this is where we included the sonification stuff and actually the various things that, you know, real modular, you know, probably, you know, do you want the data with the exhibit to represent it in a touch interface? I mean, since we don't really know what you guys were going to come up with, it we weren't really able to give it much of a name. Would you like to change the volume settings? Oh, you're not.
Yeah, I was trying to get to this application.
Yeah, it was done. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all gone wrong.
Speak to the computer.
Let me do it this way.
There we go.
Stop there.
One of the open questions we have, and it's actually on our whiteboard, was, you know, do you want data with your exhibit represented through sound? Our next one was, if you want to have more time, it was haptic. I think we actually missed it.
Yeah, I don't think that was mine.
Yes, I think we missed it. And so, you know, it was one of those things where we weren't really sure where they fit yet, but I wanted to kind of give this over there to see. I know you guys have some things you want to add to it.
I guess we touched on a couple of things that are major challenges for implementing a system like that here, especially in the content area, in the sense that if we're adjusting reading level on an exhibit, times out, somebody walks up to it, are they going to be stuck with the preferences for somebody ahead of them? So that's clearly one area that's going to require some work. The other one is what this does to the exhibit budgets when you think about the fact that now, instead of designing one thing, we're designing for how many different variables, so that could be as many as 6 different typicals, or at least a framework that allows for that, and if we want to have to vet different paths. So there are some very clear challenges to implement it. And the other element is, how do you know what your preferences are, especially, let's say, on your level of expertise or your learning level, for something that you don't know what the content's going to be when you get it there in a museum environment? How can you say you're a beginner for, say, provocative questions? Probably everybody knows provocative questions is going to be a beginner. So one of the clear things that would have to be done is the capability of having this configured on the fly. So no matter where you are, if you find you are not at the appropriate level or the appropriate setting, you can change it right then and there.
So that's what we did for the last 2.5 days. And